Hey everybody, this is Britton here, and sorry I'm getting on here just a minute or two late. I just got back from the midwife appointment with my wife. She is due to have our 7th baby tomorrow, our 5th son. It's pretty crazy. So they were just checking her, and the doctors or the midwife's pretty far away because we live out in the country a ways, and so she wanted me there just in case she was gonna have the baby today, but we're not going to, it looks like. So I am back on. Today I wanted to talk about something that keeps coming up. A bunch of people keep signing up for Blue Manor Academy, and then they immediately come back with a question, say, okay, well, where's the lesson plans? I want to address that. For those of you who are new to the group, real quick, my name is Britton LaTulip. Talking about raising children for greatness, lesson planning. I've already talked about this a little bit in one of the other videos, talking about the learning flow, and I just want to reiterate that. Everybody's going to Blue Manor Academy, and they're so used to every lesson being broken down, or they get these huge curriculum from other homeschooling publishers. And every single day, there's a lesson plan of what you need to cover and when and what time and every subject. So they're used to having that structure. At Blue Manor Academy, we believe in learning flow. We believe that kind of stringent structure can actually stop the learning flow. And so I just want to explain that philosophy and actually kind of relieve the pressure and say it's really a lot easier than you're making it out to be. You don't have to plan out your year's lessons. That would actually be a bad thing. I don't plan out more than I honestly, to be totally honest with you, I don't plan out lessons pretty much at all. But if you wanted to, the most you'd want to do is maybe a week. And I'll tell you in a minute at the end of this, a great tool for that. If you really are that kind of high achiever, type A personality, and you really want everything laid out, everything structured and planned, that's great. There is a tool for you. But that's not how Blue Manor Academy is really intended to work. We talk about learning flow, and learning flow means that you cannot pre-plan lessons. Every single child is an individual, so it's going to be a little bit different. And then every situation, every family is a little bit different. And then there's things going on in the environment, and that's going to affect the learning flow. So some things, your kids' learning ability. Some kids are super, super fast learners. Let's say readers. I know 3-year-olds that are reading very well. We have a few ourselves reading at 3 years old. And then we had other kids in our family, and they were reading a little bit later, quite a bit slower. So imagine if we had had just a pre-planned lesson, and we had said, okay, at this age, on this day, you read this much, and then you keep going like that. Well, our fast readers, the kids that just really picked it up in our family really fast, eventually that wouldn't be challenging enough for them. So we need to go faster with those kids because they can achieve more. And then we had a few other kids that are a little bit slower, kind of getting started, slower readers. And how can we pre-plan a lesson? They're going to need a little bit more time, a little bit more encouragement. We don't want to ram it down their throats. So in the end, they'll catch up. They'll be fine. But our learning flow is going to be a little bit different based on their ability. The other thing, based on their passions. Some kids are going to be super, super passionate about reading or about math or something like that. And that's going to affect your learning flow. Situation. I always talk about this. Right now, we're going into an election year. So this would be a good time to start focusing a little bit more on maybe the government stuff, maybe get out and do some campaigning and stuff like that. Get your kids involved in government things because it's a great time based on the opportunity to study elections and politics and stuff like that because it's relevant. It's going to be on the kid's mind anyway. A great time to talk about the economy. I've said that something major happened in the economy. Oil crashed huge. Stock market did too, but especially oil. Oil crashed huge. This would be a great time to talk to your kids about how that affects the rest of the economy and why it crashed and just things like that. Like this, because it's relevant, it's in the news. So that would affect the learning flow. Another thing would be your kid's passions. So if your kid is super passionate about something, you know, maybe he's super passionate about math right now for whatever reason, just really going on math. Maybe I don't want to pre-plan and break up that lesson and say, okay, well, no, we're done with math today. We're going to do this and this and this. If he's passionate about math right now and he's just in the flow, why cut it off? Why not just let him go as fast and as hard as he can? He'll burn himself out eventually and he'll get over the other subjects. But again, I really want, if kids already super motivated to go in that direction, just let them go as far as they can. When they get tired, or we'll bring him back to the other subjects. Or if it gets out of hand and he's just obsessed with math for the rest of his life, he does have to learn how to read. So we're going to analyze that individually for each kid. So again, the learning flow is an important concept. That's why we don't do pre-planned lessons. If you are a person that wants a pre-planned lesson, there is a site called Lesson Trek, It's amazing. We actually know the guy. He's advertised with us through some of our other sites for years. He's got a great site, a smaller company, but an amazing product. It's really inexpensive. It's called Lesson Trek. It allows you to pre-plan lessons and put in grades and just, it's amazing. So that is Lesson Trek. If my wife is watching, she can put a link in below. We don't have an affiliate or anything. I'm just recommending. If you really want a lesson plan, you can go ahead that route. I wouldn't recommend lesson planning too far out. You don't know what the future is. You don't know where your kid's going to be. You know, if you assign a book, that book may take them 2 or 3 weeks, or it may take them a few days. You don't necessarily know that. So it really creates a lot of stress and anxiety when you try so hard to fit yourself into a rigid schedule. What we recommend instead is scheduling study time. Instead of saying we're going to accomplish this, this, and this, because who knows what will happen. We recommend a block of time, depending on your kid's age. When you first start out, you might be doing 5 minutes, you might be doing 10 minutes for a 3 or 4-year-old, and it doesn't matter what you cover. You're just getting them in the habit of learning time. And then as time goes on, as they get more disciplined and they're more focused, they're more motivated, then you extend the time. So what I would do with a new kid going to Blue Manor Academy, I'd say, okay, hey, let's set a timer. Why don't we try to do this for 15 minutes? And don't even assign anything. The site will kind of follow and chart what the kid is doing anyway in their progress. And eventually, they'll check off all the books, and there's going to be a few books they haven't read, and they're going to have to do it anyway to finish that grade level. So the site will do that. But I would say, okay, let's just do 10, 15 minutes for now, and just go find some books to read. You know, work your way through the books, take some quizzes or whatever. That should be how you start off, just with time. With my kids, I honestly have no idea what they're doing. Day to day, they get into kind of, but they're highly motivated. One of my daughters, she's super into writing right now. So she's writing and illustrating a book. And she's actually, I'll read it to you sometime, the first chapter. I haven't been following it closely. So the other day, she actually read it and wanted me to listen to it. And I was like, okay, you know, whatever. And I was like, wow, that's actually pretty good. Which is great because, you know, our hope for her is that she will be a future writer, illustrator for Blue Manor Academy, for your kids, for our community. So it's actually pretty good. That's what she's on. My other daughter right now, we're almost having to pull the reins in on her. She's super obsessed with chess. That's okay. She was getting ready for the state championship. She won last year. She wanted to win again this year and go to nationals. So that was her focus. And she goes through, she's very competitive, which is funny because she didn't start off that way. She was like the least competitive, kind of, we thought, well, she's just a nice kid. And now she's a high achiever. She was into geography bee, and that's all she did before the geography bee. Just focused on geography, obsessive, learned so much more. And I didn't want to stop her. I didn't want to say, hey, remember, we got to do a little math today. We got to do a little this because she's in the geography flow. And that's over. That competition's done. She didn't win, but she did good for her age. Geography is very, very challenging. And now she's in the chess flow. And then, you know, we were talking about doing a Bible Bowl. And I guarantee once we start that Bible Bowl competition, she'll be in the Bible flow and she'll just eat it all up all day long. And that's okay. When I went to prep school, a military boarding school in Virginia, we actually had a 1-subject plan. It was brutal. It wasn't exactly learning flow, but it just says that you don't have to do a subject every day. The way we did subjects is you did 1 subject for like 7.5 weeks all day long. You know, 6-7 hour class and then 2 to 3 hours of homework every night, mandatory. Honors was like 3 hours, I think, and then 2 for a normal class. But 1 subject, and that was hard. But it just shows you, like, you don't have to break it up every day and do a little bit of every subject. I actually think that's a really bad way to do it. If you have 6 or 7 subjects that your kid is jumping in and out of, it breaks up the learning flow because you have to get your mind in a certain set to think about math analytically, and you kind of get into that flow. And then all of a sudden you jump to creative writing. It's a totally different mindset, and your brain isn't really, it's not as easy to transition in and out of these things. When I'm writing as a professional writer or illustrator, I tell my wife, I have to be in here uninterrupted for a few hours just to get going. It takes me at least an hour to start writing. I have to kind of research some things and kind of get, read some other people's stuff to kind of get my brain into the creative literary mindset. And then I'll start to write, and then it will flow for several hours. So if you're doing, let's say, writing, and I'm not talking about penmanship, I'm talking about, creative writing, and you're like, okay, we're going to do that for 30, 40 minutes a day. It's not possible to do anything good in that time because it takes that long just to get into the writing flow. So it's a really bad way to do it. I would highly recommend just looking at the curriculum we have on Blue Manor Academy is a big block. Saying, okay, like to go on to the next level, you've got to get through this block, knock yourself out. You know, set a timer, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, then get to an hour, maybe 2 hours, you know, whatever. You'll see what works for your family. And then just let them follow their own passion, and they'll work their way through the books. And just if you have to get involved, you know, you may have to. This is an art, not perfect, but I haven't with my kids. For the most part, they're highly motivated. They're pushing their way through it. They're excited to there's a percentage bar above the book curriculum on purpose, and it marks off each book as you do it, and it shows the percentage you complete. Just having that is kind of exciting for kids. They want to get to 100%. Okay, I'm gonna read a comment real quick. I really don't recommend doing every subject every day. I really think that 1 or 2 subjects a day is fine, and I really wouldn't pre-plan it. For example, my little boy Jonathan right now, he's obsessed with math. He pretty much does math all day long. And why not? He's getting so far advanced. He's 6 years old, and there's some math he's doing that's probably 3rd, 4th, 5th grade level. That's fine. He's going to burn himself out with math. He's going to run out of math, and he'll get to the other stuff. He does some writing and stuff too. The only thing I would say that I would do every single day is reading. We want strong readers early on, so I would definitely have a certain part of the day devoted to reading, probably every day. And then after that, you know, reading could be reading history, it could be reading math, whatever. But I would definitely make them strong readers because that'll affect all the other subjects. And then the other thing is we don't really do like a blocked off learning time. Our whole day is learning. Some of it's out in the garden. We tell our kids it's a privilege for our kids. This is how they love reading, okay? We say if you get to bed on time, if you get all your chores done and they help put the other kids to bed, this is for the older kids. If you get to bed on time at 8 o'clock, your room is cleaned, you're dressed, everything is ready for bed, you can read or draw quietly in your room for an hour. So that's a privilege to them. They can't wait. Otherwise, they just have to go to bed. So it makes writing and drawing a privilege. These are things we want to promote. It's good. And it's not part of the official school time. This is how we do it throughout the day. So anyway, those are just some ideas. It doesn't have to be that structured. Professionals are not necessarily that structured. I'm a professional author, and I cannot schedule out my day. When I wrote this book, there were times when I would write for like 12 hours a day, just pounding it out. And I would do that for 2 or 3 days, and then it was just gone. I just like, man, I have to take a break, and I'd go work in the garden, and I wouldn't even touch the book. But in public school, when I was in school or even at private schools, it didn't matter if you were in the mood. You had to read that book. It didn't matter if you had any passion about writing right then. You had to do it. And it made education very painful. It made it something that was grueling that you can just kind of push through. And every day is kind of a struggle. And really, it makes a lot of kids hate the learning process because it's so inorganic. It's like we're machines. We just sit down and they start inputting us. But we're not machines. We're organic. We have passions. Sometimes we get tired. We get worn out. We get sick. We get depressed. That's all part of the normal cycle. I wouldn't worry about it. And that's another thing I talk about, depression. I'm not talking about, I don't know, like clinical depression or something, but you go through cycles, your body, and there's times where you have high energy and you feel really excited and you just peak and you just flow, and then all of a sudden you kind of go through this downward cycle where you're tired and you lose passion and energy. And I don't recommend you necessarily push through that. I recommend sometimes that just means your body's telling you, your mind is telling you, you need to take a break. It doesn't mean you be lazy and lay in your bed all day, but maybe it's time to be motivated about gardening. Shift your focus. I've had to do that with writing these books. There's times where I'm like, man, I just want to get it out. And we had a schedule and a deadline, and I'm just forcing it. And even my editor will say, you know, it just seems now like it's forced. It doesn't have that magic you usually have. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm just pushing it out now. And it's not fun anymore. And that's when I have to step back and take a break. Okay, the other thing I would talk about with learning, and we're going to talk about this more, especially in the other books, not everything that you're teaching your kids should be it should be part of the curriculum. Like there's things that are part of the curriculum, but they're not all textbooks. For example, man, I wanted to get my kids fired up. They're already kind of in the zone. They're high achievers, and when they want something, like they win. They're highly motivated. But I really wanted them to get them passionate about, like it was my daughter Audrey who's illustrating. I'm like, man, you need to draw hands. Hands are the secret to art, gesture. It's all in the hands. If you can master the hands, you'll be a great artist. But you know what kids do when they first start drawing, illustrators? They hide the hands behind the back because hands are so hard. But hands are as important as the face. Hands are super powerful, and you can tell if an artist is good based on the hands. So I'm like, look, I know it's not fun. I personally have never done it as a professional artist because I wish I had a coach that would just make me, right? And I'm trying to produce product and stuff. I don't have time to necessarily learn right now. I wish I did as a kid, but I told my daughter, I'm like, if you want to be a great artist, I want you to draw pages and pages of hands. I want you to be the hand lady. If you can get these hands perfect, man, that's how you judge artists. Like, if I'm a professional artist and I'm judging somebody else's work, I'm going to look at the hands to see what kind of quality they really are. And so to get her motivated because it's suffering. It's not fun to draw hands all day long. Every girl wants to draw the pretty faces. That's all they want to draw. So I told my daughter, I'm like, you're going to have to study this. And so how did I set that up? Again, it's funny because it's their privilege, but it's their curriculum. So they have to clean the house perfectly. I talked about this before on Saturday. And then we go out for a date night, and they get a little time alone at the end of the day. If they clean the house perfectly, once it's clean, they've done all their chores, and they've had a good attitude on Saturday, then they sit down, and they get to watch a show. But they don't just watch any show. So a few weeks ago, I picked a show, Iron Will. If you haven't seen it, it's really good movie. But why did I pick that? Because that boy, he has a goal. And he wants to win this dog sled race so he can, I think it's like get some money to save the family farm and go to college or something. I don't know. But this kid is like, he's not as talented as the other guy, so he has to work harder. And he's just young, so he has that, he's not as old as the other guy, so he really just has this, he could push himself like older people can't, right? And he's bleeding, he's coming in at night, he's almost frozen, he almost dies, he's trying to get to his goal, right? And I had my kids watch that, and then I'm like, now think about your goals, Are you going to draw those hands? Like, you should draw hands until your hands bleed, like get fired up. And that was part of the curriculum. It wasn't just education. It was part of the curriculum to get her motivated and into that learning flow. So that's what I recommend, guys. It's actually that simple. You're not underdoing it. You're actually doing the correct thing by going to Blue Manor, set a time goal, and let your kids play around. Let them just explore the site. When my kids first got on there, they just listened to all the audiobooks, all the fun stories. They didn't even touch the math. They hardly did some of the history. That's okay, because eventually those books get checked off. And to finish the level, they will have to get to the subjects that aren't as exciting for them. They'll get the education. Don't worry. You don't have to be as structured as the public school system. The public school system is structured because they have 30 kids. They cannot allow learning flow. They're dealing with all sorts of discipline problems and unmotivated kids. Like they have to push these kids through. We have such a better situation. We don't have to do that. We can really allow our kids to be human beings and learn at their own pace, according to their own interest, and according to your life. We're about ready to have a baby. You think I'm that worried about learning right now when that baby comes? No. I mean, yes, but my kids will be learning about taking care of their little baby brother and helping out with the family. And that's teaching them about how families should function, That's important. It's actually important that we put the academics aside for a few days and say, you know what? Here's a lesson. Family comes first. Like, this is a time we unite around mom. She can be tired. And that's your little baby brother that you have an obligation to. Let's take care of him. So that's learning. But it's not necessarily part of the curriculum. I can tell you our schedule got totally blown up this year with Blue Manor Academy because right now we're focused on the stock market. We're focused on studying oil and economics because the stock market crashed. So it's interesting. We have rentals. So we're showing what's happening with those. We're talking about interest rates with our kids. And so that kind of interrupted it. And that's totally okay. Our kids are getting a phenomenal education. That's how it should be. That is an elite education. And an elite education is not a cookie cutter. When I went through Special Forces training, and by the way, I'm not a Green Beret, just so you know. I did get selected. I want to make that clear. I went through half the training, but it was really eye-opening. And one of their slogans was you cannot mass produce a Special Forces soldier. Like, that is a truth of Special Forces. You cannot mass produce it. They can't just take anybody and push them through the program. It has to be broken down. It can't be standardized. Every soldier is unique. It has to be trained individually. And so that's a really important concept. Like, they are not raising kids up for greatness in the public school system. They have a standard common product that they're pushing through. And that can't be what we want for our kids. So anyway, I'm going long-winded, but I just want you to know when you get to Blue Manor Academy, don't freak out about the learning schedule. It's not there for a reason. If I put that learning schedule on there, according to what my kids are doing or somebody else's kids are doing, it wouldn't fit your kids. It would stress you out. And it just wouldn't work for you. It's not meant that way. So that is a tool. Use it as it suits your child. That's what I'll say on that. So, okay. I think that's good. If you guys have any more questions, please ask. Remember, I'm not going to go live on Friday anymore. I'm actually working really hard. We have a Latin book that's going to be coming out soon. It's Latin roots, not Latin, but, Greek and Latin roots and stuff, which is so important. I talk about that in Revealing School, how that has been systematically removed from the public school system, and it really hamstrings kids. So instead, I really think it's by design, by the way. I really do. It's just too obvious. But anyway, so the importance of Latin roots and Greek roots, of course, is because all of the words, almost all the words in English and Spanish and French, they come from Latin and from Greek. And it's just a combination of roots, most of them. So once you learn the roots, you can pretty much translate any word. You could just see a new word you've never seen before, and your kids would know what it means, and they would be able to spell it because they would know the roots. And they'd say, oh, well, that's this, so it probably means this. Well, they removed that from the public school system, and now they do spelling and vocabulary lists. And the problem with that is every single word is a new word. It'll be transnational or transaction, or see, they all have trans in there, right? But instead of kids being able to understand what trans means and then being able to dissect those words and just know them right away, they'll make each one of those an individual spelling and an individual vocabulary list. And that just totally extends the learning process pretty much infinitely. Because they can't decode words. So that's super important. That's coming out soon. We also have a spelling and homonyms book, and I'm not a huge believer in huge spelling lists like I just said, but some spelling is important, and especially the homonyms, being able to distinguish between words that sound the same but are spelled different and vice versa. So those two books will be coming out very shortly. I'm also working on a really cool book it's just on writing. It's going to make your kid an amazing writer. So much in public school when I was there, it was all about the formatting and the right font and citing your words the proper way. That's garbage. If you don't know that and you want to publish something, an editor can quickly help you with that. That is not the meat and potatoes of great writing. It's not formatting, fonts, and grammar. That's nothing. We do teach grammar, but it's all about storytelling. It's all about creative writing and your ability it's just about powerful communicating. So the focus of public schools is so much formatting and just all that stuff that makes it miserable. There are no rules to writing. Writing is an art, and so is communication. And that's going to be a book that I'm writing for your kids. It's going to be phenomenal. It'll probably be 6 months out because I'm also really trying to finish up that character book for you this summer. But I will share the cover. I started to illustrate the covers, just graphic design for your kids. My covers, I really want, when kids see my covers, to be inspired. We don't do that stock image, but we're trying to get away from that. I want your kids to hold up the cover and be like, wow, like this is a great book. Because the cover really matters, actually. It sets a standard. So I'll share that with you because I'm excited. They're pretty cool. All right, if you guys have questions about lesson planning, just list them below. If you have any questions about the site or anything, list them below. There's been some confusion. We did raise the price a little bit on Blue Manor Academy. A lot of people were like, hey, I was going to do it, but I didn't know it was going to be raised right away. We might drop that back down. The goal isn't to push you out of the market over the $3 extra months. Really, the goal was to just get a little bit of extra $3 a month and be able to build out our site a little better for you and for your kids. But if that's really a hang up for you, the $3, like we may bump that down until we get to a certain amount of subscribers. And then we'll bump that back up. But if you have any questions about the site or anything, let me know and I'll do a video to help you out with that. And then if you are one of those people, you really like lesson planning, you believe in it, I'm not saying you're wrong. There is a great lesson planner. It's online. And it is called Lesson Trek. And there should be a link below. You can check that out. We're not an affiliate, I don't believe anymore. So I'm just recommending it as a tool. And again, I would lesson plan no more than a week or two out because life is going to change. Your kid's going to change. You really can't predict the future. 1 to 2 weeks should be plenty. All right, guys, that's it. Leave me questions below. Thank you guys for showing up. Sharon, it's always so good to see you. Thank you so much for always showing up. And if I can help you in any way or answer any questions because you're always here and stuff, let me know, and I'll be happy to address your needs specifically. Thanks, Sharon. We'll talk to you guys soon and next Wednesday.